What is up, you guys? Tuesday. Looks like we got a few people here. Let me just make sure that we're live. Hey, we're live. Let's go. Welcome. What up, Van? How's it going, man? Kind of a last minute announcement on the stream, but we'll wait a minute for people to hop in. Just made a little coffee, a little midday coffee. It's about noon my time. So that'd be 3 East Coast. But we just I just asked on our Twitter like where people are from, and it was mind blowing. Everyone's from different places all around the world, which is really, really cool. Maximus is worldwide. Awesome. So today I wanted to talk about liquidity and kind of this new age that we're entering with Hex. And, you know, a lot of people throw out the term optionality. Liquidity goes hand in hand. So really, I just wanted to chat with you guys today about kind of those liquidity options that are arising. You know, Richard Hart talks a lot about market efficiency and, you know, in a free market, things that people want will come to existence and people will build them. And we're starting to see that. I think Pulse Chain really opened the door for people to build new things. And so far, it looks like Hedron and Maximus are two products that are building on top of Hex, which is really exciting. So yeah, today I just wanted to kind of compare and talk about the differences between these options. You know, not going to try and say which one is best. Obviously, everyone's journey is different, and people want different things. And you know, I live in a mindset of abundance and not scarcity. So I try to look at everything that is being built, like not necessarily in competition with each other, but really just in coexistence. And at the end of the day, if it benefits one person, it's a good thing, right? So God, I got some stuck in my throat. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I put it in the title. Today I'm going to be talking about Maximus, Hedron, staking ladders. One thing I didn't put in the title, I also wanted to talk a little bit about, there was talks about Gnosis safe transfers, which is, you know, another form of liquidity, being able to transfer a Gnosis safe, and just wanted to discuss kind of the differences, right? You know, when you're looking at options, you know, it's funny, you have options now for optionality. The Gnosis safe stuff, I don't think anything's been built for that yet. I don't know though. At least nothing that I'm aware of public, like nothing has been made public about like at least like a trustless Gnosis safe transfer. I'm sure there's a way to do it, like, but as far as like a transaction that executes a transfer of that, I'm not too aware of. But yeah, so let's dive in. So Maximus, I'll give an introduction to Maximus first. So Maximus is a smart contract for trustless pooling of a MaxLink stake. So anyone will be able to mint one maxi per one hex during the 14-day mint phase, which starts at launch. And when you do that, you get a liquid token, an ERC20 token that if we launch before Pulse Chain fork, it'll be a PRC20 as well. If we don't launch before Pulse Chain, we'll launch on both. Separately, you'll just have to mint on both, separate contracts. And then once that mint phase ends, all the hex used to mint MAXI is then staked for the max length 5,555 days. And then when that stake ends, you get to redeem your hex principal plus interest. So a lot like a stake. The cool thing though, and this is one of the biggest value there's a few benefits to using Maximus, but to me, liquidity is one of the biggest. And when you have your MAXI token, you will have the ability, every MAXI token is redeemable at the end of that stake. And I left out that the Maximus Smart Contract will also mint. You can also call a mint function for Hedron. So at the end of that, you'll be able to redeem both Hex and Hedron from the pool. So each one of those MAXI tokens represents essentially a redeemable value at the end of that stake. And so with it being a liquid token, you can sell, you can buy basically into that position. You can increase your position by buying more MAXI, or you can liquidate a little bit of your position by selling MAXI. You can sell all of it, or you can sell some of it. So that's Maximus, which is a really, really cool option for people that really understand the value of liquidity and want that optionality throughout the 15 years, while also earning the maximum yield from a MaxLink stake. So that's pretty awesome. So another liquidity solution that has come about is through Hedron. And with Hedron, you can create what's called an HSI stake, which is essentially an encapsulated stake that gives you the optionality to tokenize it. And you can then, tokenizing it is creating an NFT that you can then sell to other people on market. Another really, really awesome option. And it just launched, so I've been kind of watching that market, and it's been working. People have been buying and selling stakes on OpenSea, which is really cool. Kind of opening the door to the NFT world into the value of Hex, which I think is really awesome. And we'll see how that market develops as more people continue to create these HSI stakes and list them and sell them. I think there's definitely kind of a craze going on right now with creating them because of the Hedron launch phase, which is incentivizing people to stake their Hex in order to lock in bonuses. So, it started at 10%, and it's a bonding curve. So every couple of weeks it drops. I believe it's at maybe 6% right now. I'm not too sure, but people are still taking advantage of that by staking their Hex and locking in those bonuses, which is really, really awesome. And then the final one, which again, I'm not sure if anything's been built for it. I believe Staker app might be building something for this because their wallet in their app is a Gnosis safe. And so there have been talks about them building the ability to transfer your entire wallet to someone else with a Gnosis safe. So yeah, it's really, really awesome. And so this kind of new frontier for Hex is liquidity. People want it. I think it's a good thing. I really do. I know some people are not happy about it, It's kind of changing the game of, you know, of hex, and how it was designed was essentially you don't have liquidity until your stake ends. You lock your money in, and if you try to pull it out, you get wrecked with the emergency in stake fees or penalties. And it was interesting. I was listening to someone talk the other day. It might have been an actual interview, but Alex, one of the biggest reasons he built Hedron is because he hates the emergency in stake. So that's really interesting. I didn't know that before. And yeah, so, you know, there's a lot of power in liquidity. The ability to have access to funds is huge. Um, and I think with Hex, some people get lost in kind of the ethos of it all, with the idea of delayed gratification. There's a lot of people that never want to sell Hex, but in reality, the reason at least the reason I invest, and I know a lot of people are the same, it's not to, it's to make money, right? Like, at some point I want to be able to sell my hex stakes. I've got some native hex stakes or traditional hex stakes, however you want to call it, um, that I'm not going to touch. But at some point when those end, which, they're very long, I have a few max lengths, I'm probably going to sell a lot of it. Just the reality of enjoying those funds at some point, enjoying those returns. And that's a reality. That's why I'm in it. Um and I think, even Richard Hart himself has talked about that. Like, you know, we're not in this for any other reason than price go up, right? And the reason you want price to go up is so that in the future you can have more money than you do today to be able to buy what you want, buy things for the people you love, change your lifestyle. And so, um, there's power there. I talk about it a lot. There will always be power in the native hex stake. Um, for me, as an investment tool, it does provide an incentive for you to just kind of not think about those funds. Um, for me, I just kind of, that money doesn't exist till those stakes end, and it's a powerful tool to just create your retirement, where, you know like any, like 401k or whatever, you just don't really, you really just don't think about it. There's no option to touch it. um, with that being said, providing liquidity options that benefit from hex, I don't see those things as this or that. um, I don't think one destroys the other. um, I think it opens doors for a lot of people that aren't whales, that might actually need money. That's a reality. Um, and so, going back to these different options that are coming up with Hedron, Maximus, um, with the Gnosis Safe Transfer, they're really set out to achieve what a lot of people have been trying to achieve with a little more traditional approach, which is staking ladders. And so, for those of you that aren't familiar with a staking ladder is essentially, rather than doing one big stake, you pick an interval, let's say, of times when you're basically breaking up one big stake into multiple stakes. And you do this for the option of liquidity. So let's say you want to do, some people, it varies. There's no like set strategy. You can do it maybe once a year. You have a stake ending every year. Maybe you do it on your birthday. Maybe you do it, there is a balance between doing it too short of an interval and too long. But essentially, the idea is that by having shorter stakes at the time of maturity of that stake, you have the option to either reinvest or pull out liquidity because you need the money. The downside of a staking ladder, by design, a stake that, let's say someone stakes one stake for 5 years versus someone that stakes one, has five stakes ending over like every year for 5 years. The person that stakes for 5 years is going to make more. That's by design. Um, and so with a staking ladder, you're sacrificing every time your stake ends, and let's say you want to reinvest it, your the t-share rate that you would need to buy at that time is going to be much higher than when you initially invested. So there's a trade-off there. To me, when I look at a staking ladder, and I have my own ladder, so I'm not, again, I mentioned this. It looks like we have some more people in. I'm not here to say one thing is better than the other. I'm just sharing my thoughts on these different options, and kind of the traditional strategy for liquidity option is a staking ladder. Some of the downsides that I do see with the staking ladder is when you're creating it. Okay, so the first downside was really sacrificing your t-share rate, which you just have to consider when making it. The second for me is when you're creating a staking ladder, you're having to kind of pick arbitrary, kind of shot in the dark dates when you think you might need money, right? Like, uh, you know, with no real certainty, if you will. And so you might have stakes ending and you didn't need that, and so you reinvest it, and now you buy it at a worse t-share rate. So that's just a reality of staking ladders. And then the final kind of downside to me with staking ladders is gas fees. So every time you end a stake, you're paying that in-stake gas fee. And so you can really think of that as a direct cost from your gains. And it's just something you just have to consider when creating that. And so it's just kind of a harder strategy to try to get right with considering the downsides. But still a valid strategy. And again, it does play into the benefit of a native stake that you can't touch those funds while it's active. So yeah, I mean, again, fine strategy, but when we're talking about these new options for liquidity, like let's take Maximus for example. So for one, it's a max link stake, so you're not you would never need to sacrifice your t-share rate. That t-share rate is locked in for those 15 years. You can have access to liquidity from your stake at any time. So it's not some arbitrary date that you think you might need liquidity. It's always there, and you can, with a liquid token that you can sell on market. And it saves on gas. So Maximus is a pool. So we talk about this a lot, but let's say 500 people are trying to end stake, or staking on a max link stake on their own. Let's say gas is 1 ETH. That's 500 ETH versus with Maximus 1 ETH, because we've consolidated all those stakes. So yeah, you don't have to sacrifice t-share rate. You don't have to pick arbitrary dates, and you don't have to worry about gas as much. So just comparing those. So when looking at kind of the L2 or kind of the new liquidity options, so with Maximus, um, Hedron, and the Gnosis Safe transfer, um, it's kind of interesting. So with the Gnosis Safe, you're transferring your entire wallet. So it's not it's not I don't know. It's kind of bulky in my opinion to transfer a whole wallet, everything in it. So I'm sure, especially if you have multiple stakes, um, you would have to give them all up, depending on how you structure it. I guess if you only did one stake in one wallet and you just had that strategy, so you had a stake in a different wallet. But if you wanted to transfer just one of your stakes in that wallet, you wouldn't be able to do it. So that's kind of the top. Then there's Hedron. Hedron lets you sell an entire stake, which is awesome. So a little more control over how much you want of your position to give to other people. Um, with Maximus, you can sell you have complete control over how much you want to sell. So you don't have to transfer all your stakes. You don't have to transfer an entire stake. You can transfer as much or as little of your position as you like. So, when you're talking about optionality, I think Maximus has the most efficiency as far as um, that control, which I think is huge. Um, and also the ability, on the reverse side of that, you can also buy as much or as little as you want, or as much as you can, right? Buying into the max link stake. So, um, just kind of my thoughts that I've been thinking through, kind of these different options. Um, again, not to say that each each has their own value, right? And a complete wallet transfer might be the benefit or might be beneficial for some people that want to do that. Um, so yeah, that was my thoughts I've been thinking about. I think another benefit to Maximus is that, when you're looking at Hedron and Maximus, it's going to be really interesting to see how people um, value an NFT of a max link stake, and what somebody's want. It's all supply and demand, and I'm just curious with how that market is going to determine that value. I think a lot of people are locking in max link stakes within an HSI, encapsulated stake, um, because you could benefit as long as you want to and then transfer. I just think that those are really hard to value right now. I've been asking people how they would value it. And it's not like really clear as to how, like, especially early on in that stake, how you would try to value that stake, right? Like you would have to look at the NFT marketplace and maybe try to see what other people are selling for. So it's just hard for both sellers and buyers, in my opinion, to try and find like parity, like an agreed upon value. I'm sure that, you know, but again, it's a free market. It's a free market. The thing with Maximus though is that there will be a direct market price set at all times on decentralized exchanges. So like what the price is. And again, it's the same, it's the same concept as HSI stake selling its NFTs, where buyers and sellers have to meet somewhere in the middle. It's just a little more clear in my opinion. And I've talked about how Maximus might actually be a great tool for those HSI stakers to actually try to see what the current value might be. Um, so yeah, it'd be really interesting. I just think I don't know. I think Hedron will really benefit from somebody building a more specialized marketplace for HSI stakes. Um, just to provide a little more um, I don't know, just insight into what that fair value might be. So maybe on Pulse Chain, someone will launch that. But we'll see. Looks like we got some comments. Sorry guys for not seeing that. What's up, Naeem? Welcome, welcome. Dip catchers in the house. Remember the people that used to talk about micro stake ladders? LOL, rest in paradise. Yeah, that was a crazy time. Yeah, they're probably screwed. So he's talking about like so when Hex first launched, people were trying to figure out strategies. There wasn't like a clear strategy on how to best like stake your Hex. And there were some people that like would do a stake ladder ending like every day. And they did that. They just, you know, is that my car? Hope not. So those people definitely got wrecked because they were rolling over single day stakes and having to pay gas every single day to end those, which sucks for sure. Yeah, so again, it's an exciting time for Hex. I think I view this as great opportunity for people to there's definitely some people that this liquidity option is huge because it really opens the door for people to benefit from the yield of a max length stake that might physically not be able to normally. And I'm talking about people that are like later in life who a 15-year stake like is really risky because they might not be alive. That's a reality. Like you're talking if someone's 65 and they do a 15-year stake, they're going to be 80 until they can touch their funds. Um, so, you know, that's I have no idea how many hexagons are 65. I mean, but the reality is like even if you're 60, you're gonna be 75 until you can touch your funds. I mean, I'm very fortunate that I learned about hex in my 20s and that I was able to lock in some max link stakes ending in my early 40s, which is still, I consider 40 pretty young to be honest, but still like 15 years is a long time. So yeah, those are some of my thoughts. I gotta message somebody real quick. Sorry guys. Yeah. So I should update you guys. So I was supposed to have an interview today with Jim Rat Crypto. And unfortunately we're gonna have to reschedule that. So I'll um I'll let you guys know when we're rescheduling that. Naeem says we're in it for the long haul. Same here, man. Same here. A lot of people talk about, yeah. So my strategy going into Maximus, and here's the real reason that I would love more funds to be in Maximus. So when people think of pools, they think of that they were like our main goal is to maximize the bigger pays better bonus, which is a part of it, right? Like that extra 10% at 150 million hex does add a few percentage to um, to your gains, to your yield. But to me, like I'm in the mindset of like accumulation. So um For those of you that don't know, we aren't doing any pre-mines or anything. So we're, the people building this, the only way that we benefit is by participating just like everyone else, minting like everyone else, one to one with Hex. And, my strategy really is to accumulate as much Maxi over the next 15 years as possible. And so the more Maxi that gets minted, the more, you could say like the more, um, the higher likelihood that maybe someone in that bigger group wants to sell some Maxi or, um, provide more liquidity because I want to buy more. That's what I'm thinking. I think there's about three different groups of people that I can think about. There's going to be the people that just love the simplicity of Maximus and they mint their Maxi, don't touch it for 15 years, and then they redeem their Maxi or their Hex and Hedron at the end. That's a great strategy, honestly. When you play around with the calculator, I made huge returns. It's essentially just a simpler form of staking with benefits. Like if you ever absolutely needed to sell, you could. But a lot of people, I think, will just do that. Then there's the people like myself who, you know, uh, beyond just holding, I want to accumulate more Maxi to buy more into the position of this max link stake. And then there's going to be people that are going to be traders essentially, right? Where they're looking at that backing treasury value and then they're going to be trying to maybe sell at a premium and then buy at a discount, sell at a premium and buy at a discount. And I'm sure that there'll be a good handful of people that do that as well. All fine strategies that Maximus opens the door to. Taylor said, how long and when is the mint phase? On the dashboard, it says mint phase start date 847 mint phase. And yeah, so currently the website is for Pulse Chain Testnet. So those days are for the test stake that's currently going on. The launch date for Maximus hasn't been announced yet. We get our audit back, say the 5th. We should get it back tomorrow. So I believe Brian, aka Dipcatcher, is going to be streaming about that, not screaming. And so if we get the green light there, we'll announce a launch date very, very soon, probably shortly after that, because we do have the goal to launch before the Pulse Chain fork to double everyone's bags. And so that'll be a 14-day mint phase after once that starts at launch. Taylor said, I thought it would be a 30-day mint phase. Yeah, so initially we were talking about doing a 30-day, but really it doesn't, there's no real benefits doing 30 days. We could just kind of pick that as an arbitrary number, which is kind of industry standard, I guess you could say. But there's no bonding curve with our mint phase. So during that whole phase, you'll be able to mint one Maxi per one Hex. And so the other reasons we shortened it to 14 days is we want to, again, launch before the Pulse Chain fork. So a higher chance of being able to do that with a shorter mint phase. And then also trying to lock in a better Hedron bonus as well by starting that stake. So Mr. E said, Johnny Chaos on Tech Talk stream the other night mentioned he's letting a 10K stake bleed out because he doesn't want to pay ETH miners. He wasn't a fan of hex pools either, even though that helps solve gas. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to have a conversation with Johnny and just to share more about Maximus. I think he would actually, the amount that we are going to keep in the Hexagon economy with gas savings alone is so huge. Obviously depending on participation, but I mean, even if it's 50 people, that's and you think like maybe 1 ETH, 1.5 ETH to end a maxing stake in 15 years. That's a lot of money. And that's money that people will probably buy more Hex with to pump the price. Yeah, and he wasn't a fan of hex pools either, even though that helps solve gas. So I think from that conversation, and I watched it on stream yesterday, and kind of went through it and shared my thoughts. I think that discussion was really framed around the only benefit being um, the maximizing the bigger pays better. Um, and I also think that Johnny's thoughts on pools were in relation to these sacrifice pools that have been going on that are fully they're not trustless. You have to depend on other people to manage those funds. So very different from what we're doing. But yeah, I mean, again, I am not someone to like I don't need to like change everyone's opinion about Maximus. Like the people that get it will get it, and the people that don't won't, or that just don't like it. I've had great conversations with people who are like, even after they get it, they're like, this just isn't for me. But I love what you're doing. I think it makes a lot of sense and benefits a lot of people. And I'm totally cool with that. We haven't really gotten any, to this day. There's been some people that are a little more direct in their kind of thoughts on Maximus or what we should be doing. But no one's. I think we've done it in the right way where no one really has come at us very like disrespectfully or like you know shit on our project, which has been really interesting. It's definitely it's cool. It's gotten more attention, there's definitely been some. I'm trying to think, has there been any real critiques? Um, to be honest, there hasn't really been any critiques on what we're doing. It's been more just like, maybe that's not for me, and that's totally cool. And I think there also might be some people that um, like to wait, and so I'm sure there'll be a handful of people that miss out on the mint phase, but will buy in maybe down the road a little bit. But it'll just be probably at a premium from the one to one. The catcher says purists who opt out just give the rest of us users a discount. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's Dip Catcher's favorite term is leaving meat on the bone. So we should thank them. Yeah. Sweaty Hexen said, all I want is full trustless pooling of stakes. If my keys and funds are safe and I can benefit from a higher daily payout with pooled stake, I'm all for it. Awesome, man. Yeah, Maximus is fully trustless. Still your keys, still your coins. I would say even more so. Like, Johnny brought up he's about self-sovereignty yesterday, um, and I really believe that Maximus is even more so about self-sovereignty because it gives you essentially it tokenizes your T shares and you have control over what to do with that stake over 15 years. So, um, like when you stake Hex, like you can't touch your funds, and so you're really kind of in the like you're giving control over to Hex of those funds for 15 years, and then you can touch them once it's over. So to me, I don't know. I think Maximus is even more about self sovereignty. If you guys have any questions about Maximus, I'm more than happy to discuss. I've kind of already shared my thoughts uh, on the options that are going on right now. Very exciting stuff. I mean, again, all good options. But I think it is fair to like just have a conversation about the differences. Um, Sweaty Hexen said the Hex contract is the gulag. Yeah, it's the gulag, but you get paid to be in it. All right, like not the worst gulag. Yeah. What did you have for breakfast today? So I actually really don't eat breakfast. I don't. Um, I've been what do you call that? So it's become like a trendy thing, intermittent fasting, but like my whole life I haven't really eaten breakfast. I usually actually only eat like one meal a day. Um so the earliest I'll eat usually is like 2, and then usually I'll wait till like 5. I usually just have coffee in the morning, and that holds me over. So I find, it's really interesting. I actually think that like ketosis, which your body goes into when you don't eat, um, like my mind, I'm actually a lot more focused than I am if I eat like a lot of food or eat breakfast. Your one meal is midnight burger and pancake. Yeah, I'm all about that late night. Let's see. Oh shoot. Okay, let me send you. I'm gonna bring Dip Catcher up. We'll join in a minute. But yeah, guys, quick updates on Maximus. We've got we're supposed to get our audit back tomorrow. Um, Again, if that's a green light, then we can launch pretty soon after, and we'll not announce that date after we get that green light. Um, so hopefully we get this launched and before the Pulse chain fork so everyone gets a copy of their Maxi on both chains. Um, and yeah, so we're just trying our best to like grow our community. Been really, really awesome to see people uh, not only joining, but a select few people have just really become leaders in our community, answering questions. So shout out to you guys. It really, really helps, us to be able to just focus on building and um, yeah, but let's see. So Mystery says testnet stake starts tomorrow. I believe so. Yeah. So um, yeah, so that'll be a shorter stake. Obviously, we're not doing a 5-5-5-5. Um, so it'll be a short stake, and within that stake, we'll call the mint Hedron function, and then once that stake ends, you'll be able to redeem your test hex and test Hedron. So that's really exciting. And people are excited for this launch, though. I'm telling you, like I would say the most asked question, and when some like people are joining our testnet or our test Telegram, but even people that are already members are like, when can I buy it? When can I buy it? So people are very, very excited. I'm excited. No expectations, but I truly believe that Maximus will be one of the greatest appreciating assets on Pulse Chain and Ethereum, honestly. And that truly comes from my belief in Hex, right? Like, and Hedron now. Like, Hedron, Hedron's got some. It's got to prove itself, right? I think it's a beautiful platform. I believe in its utility, but Hex has had 2 years to prove itself that it's a great asset. Um, and I believe Hedron will, but same way that Maximus is going to have to prove itself. You know, it's it can sound amazing, but it's like, what's the market think of it? That's the real test. And so up till this point, Hedron's been killing it. Like they really, not only by how, like what they launched, but how they launched it. Really, really impressed with Alex. He's super smart and really handled, you know, as like one of the first movers. Well, he was the first mover outside of Hex to kind of launch into our community. He took a lot of heat. And he handled it very, very professionally. Was patient and answered everyone's questions. Um, and launched, right? Like that's huge for people that have built products. You know that like getting a project to market and launching it's huge. So congratulations to him. And I believe in him. I believe in Hedron, and we're rooting for him because obviously Maxi's value is a derivative of both Hex and Hedron. So we're cheering both on, right? Um, very, very exciting though. I feel like Maximus is kind of a cheat code, to be honest. It's just, I mean, even just with Hex, when people talk about what makes Hex great, it's the great price appreciation and the incredible APY, right? Um, and we're wrapping those into a single liquid token. So when price goes up, Maxi will go up. There'll be a really, really interesting relationship between hex price. There's a lot of different factors with Maximus, and again, you can make it as simple or as complex as you want. But there's I don't know, that calculator I built helped a lot with trying to understand the forecasting the future value of Maxi, and how much you could really earn. Also, a great calculator just to see your own stakes too. Maybe I'll pull that up. Let's check something real quick. I should have pulled this up before. Sorry, guys. I'll share this. All right, so he's getting my camera set up, getting his camera set up. Cool. So he'll come up in a minute. Gosh, I just love StreamYard so much. Just from like a designer's perspective, it's just so simple. It's got all the tools you need. Cool. So yeah, guys, this is the calculator I built. It's just in a Google sheet right now. We might be building this into our website at some point. But if you want to play around with it, I'll drop the link in a second. But basically, the variables in blue you can change. So we've got the hex pledged. So essentially, the maxi supply, because you're minting 1-to-1, you can set the future hex price. At in stake, you can set the Hedron price, and then you can set the price, the hex price at mint, and that's just for this markup piece. So these were some crazy numbers that we were playing around with yesterday. Like if hex went to $100. One thing I took out of this calculator was like just if you held, let's see, maybe I'll create that right now. So what did I do? So if you just held liquid hex, just kind of like comparing the two. So I guess that would be total hex. Holding liquid hex. Let's see. Total hex, which would basically just equal this. This would be the same. And then times, and then we'll do Let's see, equals this. And then let's see. So it'd be hex value. Why I put these down? Let's see. Hex value in 15. Actually, I did lock it down. Because then we can just do this. Yeah, so this is just without staking. If you were to just buy hex at 15 cents and hold it. Let's see if we got. RH is ending Sacrifice Mercy tonight, finalizing sack balances, maybe pulse chain by June. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, April 5th. Yeah. I mean, I just have no idea. I wish you would be a little more clear on that because obviously because we're just like so dependent on when that launches. Well, not really. I mean, I just want to launch before it. And I just, he could launch in June, but he also could just be like, forks tomorrow. So we'll see. It'll be really interesting when that actually comes to be. Sorry, pulling one thing up. Cool. Yeah, I don't know, man. Well, the block explorer has been indexing since V2B. It's only at like 17%. And so I don't know if that needs to be if that's just for block explorer or if that needs to be fully indexed, because if that's the case and they're going to launch a V3, I feel like it'll be a few weeks after they launch V3. Yeah, so I mean, so someone was talking about how Maximus will trend around the hex price, and it will be. I think it won't trend. I don't think it will trend around the hex price just because there's so much more value wrapped into it. But I do think it will. It won't trend around it, like close to the number, but I do think it will trend with it. So like, just because, obviously the hex price is a variable in the MAXI backing value. But you also have the hex yield wrapped in, and you have Hedron and Hedron's yield. So, I mean, if honestly, after the stake starts and you're able to buy MAXI at hex price, that would be absolutely crazy. All right, it looks like we got Dip Catcher in the stream. What's up, man?
Hey, what's up, dude?
How's it going?
Good. Just was listening to your stream.
Nice, man. I see you got a pull-up bar in there.
Goddamn right.
Getting that work in.
I use it more for push-up bar than pull-up bar.
Better on the wrists.
Yeah, honestly, maybe I just need to do more pull-ups more.
Yeah, so I mean, I started the stream out talking about the different liquidity options coming about with Hex. So I was kind of comparing Maximus with Hedron and the Gnosis safe transfers and staking ladders. What are your thoughts in regards to like, the differences between those two, or just your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, they all kind of have their own use case, and just like different benefits. I feel like our solution has all the benefits of all of them, and even our solution could be applied to those things as well. And so Like I think for the I do think that in designing our like form of tradable stakes, um, I think that when like trading the stake, the fungibility matters, because that can just like help enable a more liquid market.
Yeah.
Because if like you only had to, or if like you could only sell to someone who was looking for the exact size stake as you, then that may be a completely illiquid market for
Yeah.
that user, and so there's not really much benefit there.
It
Um,
creates to my in how I was describing it. I think it's just like the most efficient, right? Like, you know, comparing selling Maxi to just like a Hedron HSI, for example, like you were saying, you need to find someone who agrees with the value of that particular stake with, those T shares locked up, looking at present and like yield to present day and future gains. Where with Maximus, it's like you just look at the decentralized exchange. Is that the price you want to buy or sell it? And you can.
mhm. Yeah, it just makes it a lot easier for the market to set that price,
Hmm.
um, and and it's also a little bit easier for the market to set the price because rather than because like the things that you have to look at to measure the value, like say there's two HSI stakes, if the market now has to look at them and determine what, like you're certain of the underlying value, what the principal was, you don't know what the future payout is, but like the to date payout,
Yeah.
and so like now like the market may have to like look at those individually and like price those, price the difference in like the T shares remaining, because that's really what you're valuing there, is how much of this T share is going to be worth for the remainder. um, and like having to do that in like on a per like individual stake basis,
Hmm.
it's just not very fluid. Whereas
Yeah.
like the like whereas like effectively holding equity in a large stake and then selling your portion in that way, um, it just makes that market a lot more fluid, and so like a not like, so maybe like a better price, not better meaning lower, but better meaning more accurate.
Yeah.
Like instead of like a lot of like inaccuracies in pricing, and
Yeah.
so I think in general it is a good solution there. And then also making it fungible is also an added security layer, because you
Hmm.
could hold, say you wanted to like hold, let's say you wanted to stake for 15 years and you want to, like you're committed to that, even if you aren't using Maxi for the liquidity, but you're just using it for being able to hold equity in a max length stake. You could then break up your Maxi into different wallets across
Mm.
different
True.
security procedures,
Wow.
so that like in the event that somebody was to compromise one aspect
Hmm.
of your personal key security, they wouldn't be able to get the others. And
Yeah,
so
I'm writing that down, man. I hadn't even thought about that. That's amazing.
yeah, because I mean, think about like when people, I mean, you could do like people do that on their um like with their stakes, but this like even brings more
Yeah.
granularity to it, where you can like say you want you're staking for you and your family.
Hmm.
You could give, like maybe you don't trust your kid or your grandma or whomever with a ton of money, but you could break them off some and just have them go through that process of securing
Hmm.
that little amount. And it's all part of the big stake that everyone owns together. And so
Yeah.
just like being able to break it up in that way, just adds like some security benefits that you can choose to opt into if you want to.
Mm.
So yeah,
Miss,
that's
yeah,
another big benefit that I see.
that's huge. Yeah, I didn't even thought about that. Mystery said, how would a loan protocol work with Maxi?
So Maxi could plug into existing loan protocols as either a form of collateral or something that you borrow. And so being used as collateral, what that would look like is you post your MAXI in a smart contract, which measures the value of your MAXI, and it produces the number of, you typically, say you're borrowing USDC, you borrow USDC based on the value of your MAXI. Usually these lending protocols require 2-to-1 collateral. So if you had $10,000 of MAXI, you could post that as collateral and then borrow $5,000 tax free. And so then, over time, you just have to pay back that $5,000 plus interest.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you're done paying it, you reclaim your collateral. And so the risks involved in borrowing against anything is if the value of your collateral goes down below the amount that you owe. They require 2-to-1 to give some padding, because prices can dip 50% all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So they require 2-to-1, as like padding to start. But then, if your $10,000 of MAXI is now worth $5,000, then what it does is it starts selling your collateral to make payments so that the amount you owe is less than the amount you have posted as collateral. And that's a bad situation to be in because you're selling when the price is going down. You want to sell when the price is going up.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's like the main risk involved in lending. I guess another main risk is sometimes these lending platforms experience vulnerabilities or exploits, whether in the code or just how people they string together like a crazy list of like flash loans and they're maneuvering in the liquidity pools to set prices so that like the price oracles that run these lending contracts get confused. And, there's some like kind of systemic risk there as well.
Mm-hmm.
But like, the big risk you're taking when you are, if you're, borrow $5,000 against $10,000 of collateral, if your collateral suddenly is worth, $3,000, you're getting liquidated at the bottom and you're paying tax on that liquidation. So
really?
It's like, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why? How's that? Oh, because you're selling.
Yeah, because you're selling.
Mm.
Yeah.
So that's what being liquidated means.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it means that your collateral is being sold to deliver the USD that the lender lent you. And so it's like what ensures that the lenders don't, that they always get paid.
Got it. So that's why. So like liquid loans, for example, they're waiting like a month, I think they said, till they actually launch because of the craziness that'll probably happen with Pulse initially. Okay, that makes a lot of sense because if the price is super volatile and there's like a huge drop, then people will get liquidated.
Yeah, and then that's like a bad user experience. And
and
like, because usually the liquidations, like when you look at a price chart, like the last little wick down where it just like goes whoop and then gets sucked right back up. On coins where you don't really see it in Hex because there's not really any leverage involved in Hex. But for coins or on exchanges that offer leverage, usually that last little wick down is like liquidations. There are bots you can follow on Twitter that say like when people are getting liquidated. And that is usually like the last wick down because that's not like people selling because they're bearish. They're forced sellers. And so, that were people that opened up their position up here, the price went down, and then now it enters their liquidation zone, and the act of the liquidation is happening, just like yoinks it down here. But then like that's quickly bought up because like that's not like new sell pressure. That's just like coins that are being forced to be sold. And so, that can certainly happen right around the launch of Pulse Chain. So it wouldn't make sense. I say they should, maybe that's nice of them to be protecting their users from that, but like, that's like that risk of the volatility wiping people out, that would just get set in the interest rate because maybe people won't want to borrow. And so there won't be much, high APY to be a lender of USDC, because maybe no one's borrowing.
Okay, so now that makes a lot of sense why you talked about MAXI being great collateral because, we talked about it before, but that backing value might prevent people from wanting, dumping the price like crazy because they're essentially, selling a position in the stake. I mean, it could happen, right? Like it could,
Mhm.
like what you're talking about with like flash loans and stuff, but it is a little more stable, and the value will probably tend to go up as the stake goes on. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a strong collateral because it just has like strong. It's almost like because it's like earning interest, like implicitly. Um, it's like it's paying the loan for you
Mm,
while you're holding it as collateral because like every day you're earning more hex, and if that value of the hex that your maxi is earning is growing at a faster rate than than your like payment schedule, um, then it's like your collateral is just like paying for itself, and then that just gives you a lot more flexibility on when you actually pay back the loan to
mm,
take delivery of the collateral. And doing this whole lending thing, it's just kind of like it's like a normal like swing trading strategy, kind of where you want to borrow against like so like just say you're going out about your daily life. You have your income, you have your expenses, you have your investments. You want to be borrowing against your collateral when the value is going down. You
mm,
want to like when that dip catcher algorithm's going, that's when you want to borrow dollars against your collateral. And
mm,
then when the price is going up, that's when you want to be using your dollars rather than buying more collateral. You want to be, paying down the loan and reclaiming
mm,
collateral as the value is going up. And then when price dips, maybe with new dollars coming in, you just buy more money and just post it as collateral. Like you don't need to
mm.
pay the loan back. You can just like boost your collateral
Got
and
it.
then reduce the payments you have to make. And then like when the price is going up, that's when you want to be selling your collateral or just taking new dollars coming in and paying off your loan and reclaiming the collateral.
Got it. Okay.
So like you kind of always have an option there, and ideally you want to be borrowing against things that consistently grow in value,
Mm-hmm.
um, and are liquid.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more the more liquid that Maximus becomes, the better that it will perform as a type of collateral, because
Got it.
the liquidity is important for the lenders because
Because it supports the price essentially, right?
yeah, because like if say they're trying to reclaim the amount, like so they're trying to liquidate you, but like there's no liquidity, and so
Mm-hmm.
like they could experience losses there, but they'll reclaim your Maximus, but typically
Got it.
like the lending business model requires that it's like a very low risk
Got it.
activity. Yeah, so
Why do you think liquid loans chose Pulse as collateral?
maybe because they think it's going to go up in value,
Mm,
um, and marketing,
mm,
you know.
yeah. What lending protocols like allow you to use any coin? Do you know like the top is Aave and like
No, so
or
to get things listed on Aave, it requires the DAO to approve it. So you have to
mm,
like have enough tokens to submit a proposal, which like no one has because you had to have been like a VC to
got
have
it.
one, pretty much. And so those are pretty closed gardens. There may be some that exist that provide that.
Hmm.
Um, I've been thinking about how to build um, a lending protocol that for Maximus that doesn't actually do liquidations,
Mm.
um, where you as the lender just take possession of the coin, but there's no like automatic like liquidation. Um,
Isn't
and
that's not a liquidation?
well, so liquidation meaning sell like automatic
Mm,
selling to deliver the dollars. So
mm,
like you as the lender, you are lending USDC and then
mhm,
earning USDC and interest from
mhm,
the loan. But in the event that you that they don't pay the loan, you're effectively just buying the Maximus dip because they owe you, they owe you all of their Maximus that they held as collateral. So it's like a way to buy. It would be like a way to buy dips in Maximus would be to lend dollars, and then rather than like the protocol like liquidating, the protocol just like allows you to take possession of, so like kind of like a light lending protocol that just like simple, because then it wouldn't need to rely on so many like price oracles, and like that's really where a lot of these things get gamified, is like in the liquidation sequence. It's like they pretty much just like force liquidations that result in them just making a ton of money. Like, so, or they use liquidations to like drive price in an area that they can
how would what you're thinking about not depend on an oracle and prevent like flash loan attacks and liquidation?
It would, but so the way you protect against that is by not making the measurement of that collateral value happen over like a short period of time. Like it should be like a long period of time. And so just like extending that cycle, and then also maybe not even doing immediate delivery, where like, because it's not really that fair if like the price wicks down for just a moment and then you get liquidated and price just keeps going up. So like maybe something that like allows like for time waiting of how much you owe, so that like if price stays low, then like that the lender can claim more and more of your MAXI, but if price returns to where it was, they can't. So maybe
so maybe like using like a moving average, is what you're saying.
Yeah, or like a every like or maybe like the loan, because a lot of these loans are like open ended. It's like you really don't even have to make interest payments ever, so long as your collateral's in the green. But maybe something where it takes like a monthly appraisal. Where it takes like the average over that month or something, and then it like settles for that month, and then so then it's not like an aggressive like wholesale like repossession, but more of like a just something there, and then so in effect it's like the person just bought the dip from the person they lent to.
Got it. All right, quick. What's up, Gohan? Thanks, man. We're definitely working hard. Crypto Sloth, good to see you, man. Welcome. We're just chatting about possible leverage opportunities with Maximus in the future. Really interesting stuff. I've never really looked into leveraging. So what would be like? What would you actually want to do with that like leveraged money? Like
buy a car, buy an engagement ring, like buy stuff, invest in stuff, buy Hex, buy Pulse, buy any what if we issued some there like some grand thing and people wanted to invest in it and they didn't want to sell their coins for our thing, but they wanted to borrow against it. It's like you use the leverage for investment, use it for purchases. It's like a credit card.
Got it.
But usually like you're paying like 6 to 8% interest, which is generally lower than like the 24% interest on a credit card. So it's just like a strong form of credit. Like so when I promote the idea of people, if you're really if you have a ton of student loan debt and you have no idea how you're going to get out of it, just to fully commit to living your financial life in crypto, and then just like being okay with like your credit score getting nuked, because if you can just like build up your collateral base, and then you now have the ability to get 8% fully secured credit, that can be that can and then you just like live like a credit and like kind of you just live your lifestyle without much debt, and you make it work that way. Then who cares if you didn't pay your student loan? They can't repossess your car. They can't, or they can't repossess your knowledge. They can't repossess your friends or your network. They can't repossess your experience you had in college. They really can't. But if you situate your life to where you're holding self-custody assets, you may have like independent crypto-based income. You use crypto-based credit. then, you can kind of kiss your credit score goodbye and just like not let the student lender just like extract your value for your whole life. You can, because there are these like competitive credit options forming. And that wasn't the case like more than like a couple of years ago. Like, this stuff is very, very new. And so it is a really powerful use case, and probably like the ultimate use case of crypto is because it's just money. It's just, you're like lending in credit, you're measuring the value of money. And so that's like, like a critical kind of bedrock to any economy. And so,
not like, so crypto slots to capitalize on whatever opportunities the market is giving us. That's what I'm with leveraging, outside of like buying cars or like real world assets. Like, how could you use leverage within the market, and like what would the benefit of that be? Like, what would be like a strategy you would use leverage with?
So say the price of Hex is low. You can take Hex, say a lending option existed for Hex. You could take Hex you have as collateral, and during that dip, borrow dollars, and then take those dollars and then buy Hex. And then if the price goes back up, then you only have to sell a portion of the Hex that you bought with the borrowed funds to pay back the loan. And then that extra Hex is yours for free that you got in the dip, and you held your own Hex in the dip. Okay. So
but there is a chance, like the risk there is that the price could keep going down, right?
Yeah. And then in that case, you would have been better off either not borrowing or even selling your Hex, and so, that's like the main use case in crypto credit now is just leverage trading. Real life expenses, that's another real thing. I've done that before, and it's awesome. And it feels good when you borrow against something when the price is low and then pay it off when the price is high. Cause it's like, cause when you're paying it off, so like say you borrowed against Ethereum when it was $1,000 and you paid it off when it was $3,000. What that is, it's kind of like as if when you're paying it back, since like you're reclaiming your Ethereum, it's like on that day, everyone else in the market is paying $3,000 for their Ethereum. But on that day, you were buying your Ethereum back from yourself in the past at the price of 1,000, because like you're paying $1,000 and you're able to reclaim your full $3,000 of collateral. And so borrowing for real life expenses that you then pay off, provided your borrowing is timed around, general long-term uptrends, paying off your collateral is, it just feels like you're buying it at an extra low price. And so that like one feels good. Two, you're getting a lot more money because, had you just sold your Ethereum at $1,000 to buy whatever you needed, you lost all the future upside that it could have had. And so rather than selling it to get the cash that you might need for your payment, you borrow against it. When time comes to pay it back, if the price had gone up, you're reclaiming that same amount of collateral for the same amount of dollars that you borrowed. And so it's just like you're buying it back from yourself at a lower price. So that's like one of the benefits, but but it's equally flipped on the downside risk, where like if you borrow against it and price continues to go down, then you're selling the dip. It's like you would have been better off selling rather than borrowing for that cash. You're then stuck selling when the price goes down to pay your loan. When price is down, you want to be buying or like building collateral or borrowing. Like price is down, you want to be either borrowing or buying. When price is up, you want to be settling or selling. And so that's cool. But B when it's down, S when it's up. Brian and Stan. You borrow when it's low, you sell your loan, or you sell your collateral when it's high. Hell yeah.
So CryptoSloth's talking about being a liquidity provider to generate income income to pay off loan. That's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Build an LP position, income generating asset from debt ad nauseum. Yeah, that's smart. Yeah. I
Yeah,
think
because
crypto,
if the interest you're paying is 4% and the interest you're earning is 6%,
mm-hmm.
then you can, then it doesn't even feel like it's coming out of your pocket. And
Is that considered arbitrage, would you say, or no?
that would be considered like credit arbitrage, where
Okay.
you're but that would be like, then that's like what a big part of yield farming really is. Like yield farming as a term has kind of grown to capture it captures market making, it captures lending, it captures like these weird like rebase things. But what yield farming, I think more what it used to mean and what it probably more accurately is credit arbitrage, where on one market the like the cost of carry or like the interest rate is 4% to where you can borrow at a 4% interest rate. And so, but on maybe another market, at the same time, the interest rate to lend that you earn is 5%. So you borrow at a 4% interest rate, and then you take that borrowed funds and then lend it on this other one, and you're earning 5%. So the 5% what you earn exceeds the 4% that you pay, and so that 1% is just yours until But then the act of everyone doing that together kind of makes those interest rates like squeeze to where they reach parity. And so yeah, it's like interest rate arbitrage, but that's if you're using your borrowed funds to earn yield with. But if you're using if like you borrow funds and spend that on your car, and then you're paying that back with like a separate liquidity pool earnings, maybe that's not yield farming, but it's just like you're financing your your car payment with your LP earnings.
Got it. That makes sense. What up, Red Squirrel? Welcome, man. I've been seeing your what would you call them? Like flow charts. Those are pretty awesome. What's up, Will? Welcome. Tight Designs ask, what is trustless pooling? Do you want to say that, Brian?
Yeah. So trustless pooling means that you're able to pool your funds and make them work as just like one wallet, but you don't have to trust any person to actually operate that wallet and like maintain the private key. Like, because in this case, the pool wallet is a smart contract that operates fully by the code that we're getting audited. You can read it, and the way that it works, it's where no one person can just run off with the funds, and you don't have to rely on a person to like operate the pool and make sure that what they say happens. Like whatever it says in the code is what's going to happen to the pool. So that's what we mean by trustless. And a big reason why trustlessness is important in financial applications is that, what if, because you could do this in a very trustful way. Like you could have, you and your friends could organize a pool where just like, maybe your friend who knows most about crypto is the one that sets up the wallet. And then they have like their own spreadsheet where they say, okay, Tight Designs put in 1,000 hex, Red Squirrel put in 2,000 hex, Crypto Sloth put in 3,000 hex, and then like being the one where you're relying on that person's record of what happened, and then you're relying on them to actually do what they say they're going to do. What if something happened to that person? What if they disappeared, or what if they just like stopped being friends with you, and then the whole thing just kind of came crashing down? That would be a bad situation. So if you can do things in a trustless way when it's related to finance, you should. And so, and that's what the, writing Liquidity smart contracts that run on blockchains that, just operate, that it makes for better financial arrangements.
Blockchain technology.
Cryptocurrency. Web3.
The metaverse.
The metaverse.
Oh man, it's so funny. I'm glad we moved around, like away from the blockchain buzzword. That was an interesting time. But now, I mean,
blockchain, not Bitcoin. I'm really interested in the underlying technology, the underlying distributed ledger technology. It's going to be revolutionary to supply chain.
Now it's just all
to,
about those mad gains.
yeah, what else? That's the only thing it should be for.
Yeah.
Like, because that's really all that's the only, because that's like people laugh at, they say that crypto is just like a speculative game, like as if that's a bad thing. But speculating on the prices of assets, that's like the most critical activity that humans can do to coordinate across the world and to help deliver what people want at a price they can afford. So like speculating on the money, like measuring the value of the money, like that's such a critically important role in society. And people that like want to suppress that, what they really want is they really want people to be dead. They want
Yeah.
humanity to cease. And so
Yeah.
like that's why whenever like I get really triggered when I hear people say like, oh, it's just for speculation. I'm like, yeah, like it's the only important thing on earth other than
Yeah.
reproduction is speculation.
Yeah.
And so, it's critically important.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. So my parents are in town, and I was trying to explain to my mom, Maximus, um, and it's just it's the bottom line like question is like, where does the value come from? Like I just don't get that part. And yeah, that was something for me when I was trying to understand crypto, and I'm still trying to understand it. Like there's a lot of coins out there that are just coins, and somehow they have value. Not to say that I think every coin needs utility, but it's just this understanding of like supply and demand. That's like the baseline of it all, and it's all about what people are willing to pay for it, and kind of everything in crypto is just like different mediums of that decision, that exchange rate of what, and that speculation of what someone will pay for in the future. And there's really no wrong. Obviously people have strong beliefs on which one is better and why their value is more legit, you could say. But yeah, I mean, maximus makes the most sense out of any crypto next to hex to me, and next to like Ethereum obviously, and Bitcoin. But I'm excited for it. I think anyone that understands hex should very easily understand Maximus.
See, I'm surprised your mom was kind of like iffy about what it's kind of how it gets its value. But honestly, a way that just from the last time when we hung out with her, and she's talking about her concerns with like central banks just like printing money.
Yeah.
Like what's it backed by? It's like in Maximus's case, it's almost like Maximus is like a central bank that issues a new currency that's fully backed by a stationary asset that's like there. You can prove it's there.
Yeah.
It's not like it's like being encumbered for some other use case. And like, so, maybe framing it to her like that it's like, like imagine if like the central bank actually had assets and then each dollar that they issued was backed and redeemable
Actually backed.
for something that's like in the reserve. And
that's a good point.
That's kind of, because like MAXI, because most cryptocurrencies have no intrinsic value. Like most of the value is like extrinsic, like demand that like that's extrinsic, like the, but things like the intrinsic, like qualities, it's not like they're redeemable. Like the things that are intrinsic are like in hex, like, the supply, the 3.69% inflation, that's an intrinsic property. Like that's not something that's applied from the outside. It's something that exists from within. And like in Bitcoin, like the halvening schedule and like the 21 million, like that's set from within. So that's like an intrinsic quality.
Yeah.
But it's not like intrinsic value how like in the real world they consider it, where like the intrinsic value of a business is it's like cash flows and assets. So like most cryptos don't have intrinsic value, which is actually good. Like with hex, like there's no intrinsic value to the hex, and that's actually a good thing, because for like base layer money, the less external factors that like interfere with the pricing, the better. Like for gold, the fact that it's used in industrial use cases and like jewelry and like ornate use cases, that takes away from how well it can perform as money, because people aren't just speculating on like it's like for like a base layer money, you want the entire value to be monetary premium. So like
Why?
because that's what tells you like the value of the money. Because when you're using gold in electronics or as jewelry, you're not using it as money. Like, and so like,
but isn't that bolster the price, because
it may bolster
there's
demand. Yeah. So like
yeah.
price going up is good, but like for its like soundness as like monetary base, it's actually better for there to be like not having some industrial use case for it. And so like where like the demand is purely because people demand it as money. Like that's a signal of a strong money, is something that people demand, without like there being some, like
Utility.
external, utility or external reason. Like they demand that thing because they demand the thing, and like that's like
I don't know.
the apex.
Why would that?
No. It's so that is not to say that other things won't outperform it, but like for like what is like the base money for like humanity to kind of congregate around, like if the value is 100% monetary premium, that's a strong, durable money. Because that's like it's harder to compete against that.
But you said Hex was better, but I would say that there's demand for Hex to be able to use the Hex contract. So the same type of utility in my mind, like with gold, that's just a factor that to me is a beneficial factor, because it does create more demand than just it existing. And it's hard for me to even say like, what if that's the case, then why would you're basically saying with no external factors, the best type of money would just be like an ERC-20 with no utility, and people just wanted it because it existed.
Yeah, well, the people massively demanded for almost no reason other than they like the coin.
So you think like dog meme coins are the best form of money?
It's the ones that persist, and ones that like, like, because that, where there's like lasting monetary premium, like, and so like they're all competitors, but if something was to come along that just like commanded like long-standing value, and things like the Hex staking mechanism, those things like bolster that like premium, because like you're still just like demanding.
Yeah, but you're saying that's a bad thing for
no. Like, so like if Hex was used for like, I can't even think of like an industrial example, like how gold is, but like things like where people are buying it other than just to accumulate more of it, like those things aren't necessarily like the thing that makes something like apex predator money, like the money that like
but
all
okay,
other
so
monies are measured against.
Let's talk about the US dollar. So the reason people want US dollar is for its utility, is along with many other things, like its backing.
Yeah, and it's not by no means a strong like base monetary good,
but it's
a very strong currency and a very strong payment.
You're talking about like store of value. Then
I'm talking like below store of value, like the base layer money, like the thing that is value. Like that's what I'm talking about. And then like the thing that can like
what is the best then?
Well, Hex is a strong competitor. I mean, it's something that's kind of always changing, and like, like gold has been a strong candidate forever, but now it's the, no longer the industrial age, it's now the information age. It makes sense that like kind of that like strong base layer money is being replaced with other things. Now it's like, now there's like a big shift happening, kind of moving from the industrial age to the, it was like the Stone Age to the industrial age to the information age. Now, it makes sense that a digital asset would be, that base layer money. And that's what we're seeing play out right now. It's, like the world is deciding what money is and what money's going to be. And so the things that have strong monetary qualities.
Simplify in one sentence why you think that like like utility demand is a bad thing for base layer money?
Because it interferes with the pricing. Because there's sources of demand that aren't related to its monetary qualities. Those sources of demand are related to its ornate qualities, or it's like conductive, like in gold, like the ornate qualities, like it's pretty, you know, the conductive qualities, like how it transfers electrons, like its use in those settings has nothing to do with its monetary qualities. It has to do with its chemical properties. And so like those things
But
are
if a
interfering
base
with like
if a
the market's like use of like the money as being like the measuring stick of value, because like the its value is like, you know, even if that's a small degree, like just, you know,
but the
the
money,
value.
but if the money had no utility, then it would have no value.
No, that's not why gold was valuable, is because people only discovered that gold could be used for electronics in like the 30s. Like,
No, but
you
like
know,
like a
people only.
hypothetical baseline money that you're talking about with no external utility would be useless.
Why? What extra utility does Bitcoin or Hex have?
Um, well, I mean, if you're talking about Bitcoin, like the way, I mean, the path that it's on to be the best money asset is by expanding its utility and its acceptance and how people can use it. Same thing with Hex, right? Like we're expanding the utility of Hex, which further creates demand, which further pumps price, right? So
Yeah,
I mean, to
those are
me,
like
yeah,
separate. Those are separate goals. Like
yeah, totally. But
growth of an asset as an investment is like separate from like I'm talking like at like the base layer, like a critical function of humanity is like measuring and communicating value, like like across languages, across cultures, across geography, like. And so things where like the base asset itself is purely driven by supply and demand, you know, that is like a that is a quality of a strong money. So like if you had to like pay for your dentist in hex coins, like people like that demand for the hex is like it's really demand for dentistry.
so you don't want what you're saying though is you don't want the baseline money price to go
Like
up.
people can certainly use it as payment for that thing, but like you know, it wasn't baked into the code that like, you know, to earn these dental services you had to buy the coin, like, you know. So like what I'm talking about is like use of something other than for its financial or like monetary qualities, like even though those aren't necessarily bad things, and those can, you know, those can like bolster demand or, you know, introduce demand, like
Okay,
for
so
like.
you're saying like monetary utility of a currency, like of this baseline money you're talking about, is okay. You're talking
Yes,
about
yes.
more like external, like with gold. Okay, that makes more
Yeah,
sense. I thought
yeah.
you were saying no utility
No, no,
because
no.
yeah, okay, that makes more sense. All right.
Things that aid, like things that are like just baking in that monetary premium, like, because that's
Mhm.
like, you know, because when you look at like gold versus copper, like the total value of the gold is mainly driven by its demand as like, you know, money, or as like a physical asset, whereas like in copper, much of the demand is driven by like the industrial purchase. So, you know,
Mhm.
to make copper piping or to make electronics or whatever. And so like the in copper, the industrial utility is far greater than the monetary
Mhm.
utility. And that's expressed in like there's not really much monetary premium to copper, but there's like a strong
Mhm.
industrial premium on the copper. Whereas like with
Got it.
gold, the main driver in that is its like monetary premium,
Mhm.
and like a secondary one is the like industrial,
Mhm.
you know, utility. And so that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that
Okay, that
like
makes sense.
things that are pure money are better suited to be pure money.
Mm.
And then like pure money is a strong thing to build an economy on top of with
Yeah.
things like Maximus. Like Hex is a really strong money, and so
Mhm.
that makes it a strong base to build this type of like Maximus, it's kind of like a if Max Link staked hex is like gold, it's like gold of the information age, then Maximus in a way is like a currency that's layered on top, that's backed by that like strong monetary base. And because it's backed by that strong monetary base, that can boost its currency properties.
Okay. Makes sense.
And so and because you're not even on the monetary, like if there was demand for like very high frequency transactions of hex, but like it can't, or of like a coin backed by a hex stake, maybe you can't do that as a pure ERC20, but you could like bridge into a layer 2 and have like a super powered currency, like instant finality, instant transactions, that you bridge the Maximus into, where transactions happen on like a fast, cheap chain where you bear maybe some type of risk, but then they get settled on the baseline chain, and then like ultimately settled on the redemption from like that MAXI to the hex. And so like MAXI itself can be extended as like more as a currency, as opposed to like the base layer asset. Like the hex in this case is the base layer asset. The Maximus is like the layer that unlocks other types of financial utility. And then that also enables you to you can enhance security if you choose to. You could enhance the currency properties by bridging the MAXI onto a fast, instant, cheap chain. And so like
I got to run to the restroom. I'll be right back.
Okay.
I really gotta go.
So a lot of what we're talking about, I've definitely learned from Trace Mayer. I would highly recommend just going through and honestly listening back to Trace Mayer's his Bitcoin Knowledge podcast, starting when it changed from Run to Gold podcast to the Bitcoin Knowledge podcast, or even like what it still was called Run to Gold. He started talking about Bitcoin in like 2012, and it was highly centered about like Bitcoin as like a reserve base layer monetary asset. And a lot of the things that he was like, like the ideas that he was promoting about like how Bitcoin is a strong competitor to gold. Hex, I think, is actually a really strong competitor to Bitcoin in that sense. And so, a lot of what I've learned from Trace Mayer about Bitcoin, I'm able to apply towards Hex, because, of all cryptos, Hex really is the only one that has a serious chance of like competing with Bitcoin as that kind of like reserve asset like big money use case. Because most other cryptos, you back? Everything good?
Yep.
I was talking about how like a lot of like what's influenced my thoughts around like monetary science is what I've learned from Trace Mayer about him talking about Bitcoin. Like a lot of the stuff that he like throughout the years, going back way, to like his early stuff in like 2012, 2013, he talks about it, related to Bitcoin, but it fully applies to Hex. And a lot of the things that he, argues make Bitcoin a really strong, like base layer money, certainly apply to Hex. And of all cryptocurrencies, most new coins that launch, they aren't really competitors with Bitcoin. Most coins that launch, the use case they're going after is either like fast, cheap transactions. So that's like more the currency use case. Like, those are interchangeable. You can kind of use whichever one, it doesn't really matter because you're just buying it to then spend it. So like there's the currency use case. Then there's like the blockchain, smart contract platform, use case. That's like Ethereum, Solana, Avalanche, Phantom, like you name it, all those different, Pulse chain. There's a lot of competitors for that like blockchain, platform use case. A lot of competitors, very, people can very easy to move to new ones if you really want to. But then the third category, which I think is the most important, is that like base layer, like money use case. And really Bitcoin up until Hex was the only game in town for that. It's like all these competitors that would try to come at Bitcoin. It's like, they're not even going at the use case that Bitcoin has been most successful in. And I think that's why there was so much apprehension from the Bitcoin crowd when Hex came about, was because Hex really is the only serious competitor to Bitcoin for that like long-term savings category for like retail. And then, ultimately I think Hex can, kind of how Bitcoin is turning into kind of like a reserve currency for like corporate or like maybe some small nations are like adopting Bitcoin as a treasury reserve asset. I think that because of Hex's qualities that are being shown in its retail savings use case, that makes it a very strong candidate for like the corporate treasury or like sovereign national treasury.
Mhm.
And so that and
So
Hex is like the only.
what characteristics of Bitcoin do you feel like Hex competes with directly?
So the inflation like schedule of Hex, I think is more powerful than like the halvening. Like so in Bitcoin, it's like halvenings up until it reaches 21 million coins, and then it's permanently deflationary from there.
Mhm.
Whereas Hex is always inflating at the constant 3.69%. And so I think that like for like even though like the deflationary aspect it puts or it puts like upwards pressure on price because every day that goes on maybe coins are getting lost, like the total supply is less,
Mhm.
and if like more and more people are trying to hold it, that's good. But with Hex, even though it's 3.69% in like inflation, since the inflation is getting distributed amongst its own users based on who's staking the longest, um, it's almost like Hex in itself is deflationary for the stakers because they're earning Hex at a faster rate than it's inflating, but it is inflationary for the people using it as currency or people using it on like the short-term basis. So it's almost like recirculating, like perpetually recirculating Hex from like the short-term users of Hex to the long-term users. And that is a really powerful deflationary force on the price because like the people that drive the price, like, because like the small users, like they really don't drive price. The big users, like who are, accumulating more, like they're the ones that really drive price, and like rewarding large players to stake and hold for a long period of time. That's a really strong, like deflationary use case for that class of users. Whereas like it's inflationary for the people in that shorter time, which, is beneficial because like for those people, they're not competing with these big whales who are staked for 15 years. They're not competing to sell against those people. And so like for the smaller people that may have shorter time preferences and more like instant cash needs, it's highly beneficial to not be competing in the market with these like big sellers who've punted it out. And so like it's like the short-term players are paying the long-term large players, they're paying them to stay away. They're paying them at a 3.69% tax per year. They're saying, okay, stay out of the market, during this time. This is my time to shine. You stay out there, I'll break off 3.69% of my bag per year and it's yours. So like that whole mechanism where it's deflationary to one class of users and inflationary to another class, that's really powerful for like a constantly like chugging along economy. And then also, whereas like in Bitcoin, the inflation goes to miners, and so but it's not even necessarily deflationary to the miners because no miner is earning past that inflation rate. And since like it's like split up amongst all the miners, from their perspective, it like it's inflationary, but maybe if you're earning enough, to you it's deflationary. So like in Bitcoin, it's up until when the supply cap is reached, it's permanently inflationary to everybody. Um, and then only from then on, starting in 130 years or whatever, does it become deflationary. So like, there's not a class of users who are experiencing high deflation in Bitcoin, whereas there is a class of users from the start in Hex who are experiencing very high deflation, which is, that's like a strong value proposition. So that I think is competitive. The 15-year lockup, dude, like that's fucking awesome. Like, why doesn't Bitcoin have that? That should have been like default in Bitcoin. And so then like that's where Hex kind of has aspects of like treasuries and like bonds, which it has some of those like good qualities about it. And so like it has those types of qualities where like, gold on its own was good, but then like it kind of required like, you know, more financial layers to be built on top of it. It's like Hex kind of has those, that baseline monetary quality like gold, but it also has some type of quality that's similar to another very in high demand, you know, financial asset that people, that the societies of and governments have like layered on top of like that baseline monetary asset, like through the, you know, like through yield bearing treasuries, whatever. And so Hex kind of has some of those qualities, you know, that I think give it a good, you know, just a good like business cycle, because like that's something I think Bitcoin has real, like the halvenings, like having that 4-year business cycle. That's like a really strong catalyst for adoption, because you know, like as like it's something that where like an abrupt change happens and it causes like the market to then react. Um, Having like those times where like the price is running gets everyone excited, you know, all the free marketing, and then the price just like crashes and there's like big consolidation and like big, you know, like as things, you know, prices are running, then more things get funded, more things get built. Then as price crashes, it's like the bad stuff gets weeded out, it gets consolidated, and then like that difference is like a de-risking event. Like this whole like you know, it's like a 4-year cycle of volatility that just results in like it being a little less riskier every time, because like more people in, more infrastructure, you know, it's just like better known. And so the having those like that baked in like volatility cycle, it's really powerful in bootstrapping these economies. And Hex, I think, has a really, you know, it's not on a 4-year business cycle. It's kind of like it's like a 1-year business cycle combined with a 15-year business cycle, where the because during that first year in Hex there was really high inflation, like hundreds of percent annualized inflation, combined with like the big payday event where like you had to stake before that day, um, and then you know to earn like that large pool of inflation. And then when you look at those Genesis, you know, T-share stakes, how they kind of end in these like yearly cycles, just because people, you know, they're like, oh, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, like that's just kind of, you know, it's kind of shelling points. You know, there's big ones in 15 years. So like all those big spikes, when you look at like the Hex.vision charts of all the stakes starting before big payday, they like that's kind of like how Hex's like business cycle is baked in, where certain times of the year there's high inflation, other times of the year there's low
Yeah.
effective inflation, and then like the
I
market
would say
responding to that.
that's definitely a trade-off though with Hex. You know, it sounds like with Bitcoin, it's a little, you know, with the having a little more cyclical, like you're able to kind of know what's going to happen after that. Where with Hex, with the randomness of stakes ending, it's a little harder.
Well, so if you ignore stakes that started after big payday, because what you're really looking at are the stakes that experienced big payday, because that's like the big sources of liquidity. One, because those users bought at a low price, and
Mhm.
two, because they're earning at a 40% higher T-share rate, or you know, lower T-share rate. Yes, they have 40% higher earning potential per hex staked than newer ones, and then those are already set in stone. So like if you consider that like as like the launch of Hex, like those
Mhm.
coins as like the original coins, um, it like whatever, even though it is like kind of random, like Bitcoin, it's like every 210,000 blocks where there's like
Yeah.
a big supply shock. Whereas in Hex, it's kind of, it's more gradual, but then it's centered around like the 1 year. You know, if like when you look at just like all like the total stake chart, we just produced one that's like shows the Genesis stakes, because like if you call that like the initial supply that's doled out over the first 15-year cycle, kind of how in Bitcoin like the initial supply is doled out over 32 halvenings over, you know, 130 years, whatever that takes. It's like that's like the initial one that's like known, and
Mhm.
then so these ones are known. So there is a lot of randomness, especially with new stakes. But if you ignore those and just treat that one, it's like that kind of defines the like business cycle in Hex, because there's like kind of like these like yearly spikes around the end of the year, like November,
Mhm.
December, and then there's like big spike at 10 years, and then big spike at 15 years, and then like, you know, you may expect to see echoes of that into the future, you know, as people
Mhm.
end their stakes, you know, what's their staking activity from then, like are they, you
Yeah.
know, going on that same cycle, you know, and then over time you'll see it kind of blend out. But like the echo of that like first year, like just the dynamics of the first year launch.
Yeah.
You'll probably see those like supply shock dynamics echo out into into the future, and then over time they'll kind of dampen. But I think that like that high volatility that's created, that's really powerful for bootstrapping the hex economy, kind of like how the volatility created by the abrupt supply shock of the halvening, that's been a strong catalyst in helping Bitcoin bootstrap as a money.
It's been really interesting. So like with Bitcoin and Bitcoin miners, it's kind of a like consistent dumping, right? Like to pay for electricity and mining costs, kind of a consistent dumping on the market. With Hex, it kind of seems like, the people that have staked and have stakes ending are dumping, and it's a little more random. There's some people that restake. A lot of people, obviously, with like current Hex price, are not, are selling. So that's been interesting to watch with, because you can think of like Hex stakers as miners essentially earning that interest. But it's created kind of a sporadic sell-offs. You mentioned that the people that got in before big payday bought in at a very low price. And so, even at 15 cents, like huge gains for them, that they're obviously locking in. It's been interesting to watch for sure.
I like what Will highlight the comment that Will just said, not the one, the trust fund. So like that's a key element to all of that is like the social consensus is like hugely important, because like these are like it's like what people like agree to value, and that's like a really like there's almost no like science or like rhyme or reason. It's just like what's in demand. Certain qualities may impact that, and like it's reliability and reputation and how long it's been working and all that. But like kind of like that's like the base layer below the base layer money is like that social consensus, and then that's kind of where like the humanity is tied in with the like the monetary aspects of it.
Yeah. Social consensus for sure. It's what was the thing about? Yeah. I was talking about man, I totally lost my thought. My cat walked in here and I lost it. But yeah, man. I mean, you've been in Bitcoin for a long time now. I would consider you used to be a Bitcoin maxi that transferred to Hex.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of literally my story is like there's so many, literally everyone from the class of 2017, like all the ICO shitcoiners that then like, because I mean a lot of those people they came and they went and they missed the whole next cycle. That was like one cohort, and then there's like this other cohort where it's like they're all into like these like wacky ICOs. The crazier the business plan, the better.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had such a bad experience, like looking at all these wonky things that just like nuked forever and like never came back. Cause like now that there's Uniswap, like it's very hard for things to never come back or like always be gone. But like that time, if you were only on one exchange and that exchange had no volume and, was cost them more to have you listed than not, then like you're gone and that coin's dead. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of those people that kind of lived through that and then like that, like all the other coins went down like 99% and Bitcoin only went down like 80%. Like that difference between the 80% to like the 99, that's like 50x. Like, what would that be? Like, so, just like, relative, like that last bit that it goes down from, like 80 to 90%, like because of what you're measuring from the start at, it's like a huge difference. And so all those people were like really wrecked. They saw the Bitcoin people wrecked, but not fully wrecked. And they, and then when Bitcoin found its bottom and then like carried on, a lot of those people were like, okay, like fuck all these altcoins, like Bitcoin only. And then they go down
Mhm.
that rabbit hole. And it all comes down to who you listen to and who you're persuaded by. Because during
Mhm.
that time, like really the only people that I can say I've actually been persuaded by in crypto are Trace Mayer and Richard Hart.
Mhm.
And so like, I'm lucky that I was like on the like Trace Mayer and Richard Hart side of it, as opposed to like the Pump and the Peter McCormick side of it,
Mhm.
where like, Trace Mayer was like excommunicated from Bitcoin because he was suggesting that people look into other, like he was suggesting that rather than trying to build privacy into Bitcoin, that we should build other assets separate from
Mhm.
Bitcoin as like a decentralization and like a resilience factor. One of some of his last words on live stream were, "I need ghost money."
Yeah.
And so like, his openness to kind of branch out, and like how everything is like rooted in like what I think is like very sound economics and stuff that just
Mhm.
makes sense. Like
Yeah.
there's no like stretching for reality here. Like everything that I've learned from him just makes sense.
Mhm.
That's which I value a lot. And same with like Richard Hart, like the type of information, like where he's even more innovative and like looking for like different solutions. And so like I'm just lucky that those are the people that have influenced me.
Mhm.
Because like the people that were just influenced in the YouTube algorithm
Yeah.
fed them the wrong shit. Like they're these Bitcoin maxis that have half a Bitcoin, and they started with 3/4 of a Bitcoin in 2019. Like those are
Yeah.
the people that are mega wrecked.
Yeah.
Because like, and they're not taking on any like risk. They're not looking for disruptive force. They're not willing to try new things. Like, and
Mhm.
the market is just measuring that, like, their attitude is not in demand. Like the market
Mhm.
demands new high risk things. And so a lot of those Bitcoin maxis, they were there for the ICO stuff. They converted to Bitcoin maxi, but then they couldn't convert out. And so they've probably had an awful experience. Honestly, like, it, especially when the bear markets happen, it kind of like reminds me, like there's a lot of people that I know, like either that I've met through crypto or met years ago because they were also interested in it.
Yeah.
Like the satisfaction level I have is way different than the satisfaction level other
Yeah.
people have. Like many people hate it, like because they've
Mhm.
had an awful time for like 5 years now. Like
Yeah.
I had an awful time for like 3 years, and now
Mhm.
it's turned around a little, but like,
Yeah.
it your experience very highly depends on when you got in and like
Yeah.
what messages you were influenced by. Like
Totally.
I literally talked to I talked to Alton about his friends who are uh these like XRP like crazed conspiracy theory
Mhm.
lunatics.
Yeah.
Like the shit that they say, like they're looking for encoded messages in like the IMF meetings to
Mhm.
like, where they're like, oh, XRP is going to $10,000, like
Yeah.
literally crazed stuff where like just nuke,
Yeah.
like, and it's just like, you know, like
Well,
that could have been
that's
me.
hard. It's hard. It's I would say it's hard. I mean, it's hard to like know when to get off the sinking ship, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying like Bitcoin's a sinking ship. It's always going to be a great asset. You know, um, it may be surpassed in the future, likely will be. But I mean, like maximalism is just like it's an interesting social phenomenon that's like really been heightened by cryptocurrency. Um, and it's funny, right? Like it's hard to, I don't know, it's hard to like really shit on Bitcoin Maximus for me because there's a lot of Maximus in our community, right? Like there's a lot of Hex Maximus and Richard Hart Maximus that shit on Bitcoin Maximus, but they're just on different teams, but they both have the same mentality that they think their asset is better. Um, and obviously, like I'm biased to think Hex is better, so I tend to agree with that. But you know, it's a it's a very, I mean, obviously, very touchy topic in our community, and but it is like hard to see some people like questioning why Bitcoin people aren't willing to look at other things when they themselves aren't willing to look at other things too, right? Like that's a reality.
It's like you become what you hate.
100%. And even when it's something that like someone in your own community is building, you know, but again, like I've talked about this a lot, and I truly think that we're at an evolution point in our community. You know, I don't know if Richard Hart didn't launch Pulse Chain, if we would ever evolve from like that type of community that was a Hex Maximus community where you couldn't talk about anything else. So with Richard Hart opening up the door with Pulse Chain, you know, that first step for a lot of people was like, it was like there's a sticky spot because they've been Hex Maximus for 2 years, but now they have a new Richard Hart project. So that was kind of the first like test of like, okay, well, I'm going to, you know, and there's still like Hex Maximalists that love Pulse Chain, but only because it benefits Hex. And then there's kind of like Richard Hart Maximalists that because it's a Richard Hart project, you know, they're supporting it. But in order to support it, like in order to support Pulse Chain, you have to want the chain to be used. And so it also like pushes people to like need to, you know, not necessarily like invest in other projects, but not like attack it like they used to. And I wouldn't call it support. I would just call it like non-aggression. But then there's a lot of people that have like, you know, very surprising, like, especially in kind of the, you know, people will call them OGs or just leaders in the Hex community that have really opened the door and are not only like non-aggressive, but like supportive and look at other things as opportunities. Yeah, so it's a very, very interesting time. But I still do find it kind of funny when people are shitting on Bitcoin maximalists, but they themselves are maximalists too. That's always kind of funny to watch.
Yeah, that's why I mean, I think that the whole Pulse Chain thing, like, one, I don't think I've heard of anybody that loves Hex and hates Pulse Chain.
Yeah.
At the start, when Pulse Chain first, some of my earliest videos, I was suggesting that like creating Pulse Chain as a solution for gas fees isn't worth it, but like just the financial opportunity of a new chain, because like at the time there's so much demand for like Solana, Avalanche, Phantom, like all these things, like that in itself is like a massive opportunity. And just like something like that produced within kind of like the Hexican culture and like Hexican ethos, like that I thought was like the strong part, like the gas fee savings, like, you know, just from my perspective on gas and, you know, my like how, you know, it's like it's a signal of success. And like a signal of permanence. And like you want that if you care about an asset that you're expecting to be around in 15 years, like you want the thing that it's running it to be permanent. And high fees are a signal that it's not going away.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, so but I don't think I know of anybody that's like into Hex but not into Pulse Chain.
Well, I would say there's people that only care about Pulse Chain for its benefit to like Hex and staking Hex. There's
that's definitely true. But also that like just like I think that the whole Pulse Chain thing is like it's like a good way that like prevented Hexicans from kind of like ossifying into this like static, like stagnant, like one asset only thing. Like it's introducing people into like this other realm of crypto that's higher risk, higher reward. And in that case, like, you know, it's probably like it's better to be like speculating in an ecosystem where like you've already, you know, have experienced proven results like from being in this ecosystem. And so like that's like a good, just in general, like that's like a good way to screen, you know, like because there's so many shitcoins, so many chains out there, like, you know, increasing your risk tolerance to speculate in this ecosystem that's kind of driven by the same people that produced the one that produced the results for you, like that's like already a better start than just like seeing something on an Etherscan ad and going all in, like
totally. Yeah,
that's
Richard Hart has set a bar for sure that,
yeah.
like, especially with these projects, us included, like there's kind of like non-negotiables that, with Hexkins being the main users of Pulsing, like just a bar of expectations, like with the immutable code, with no admin keys, audited code, like very, very good things that we should be able to carry into our decision making for future opportunities. And again, like I still believe like being a Richard Hart maximalist and only sticking with his products is still a great strategy for most, especially like I was in a space the other day, like kind of just low information investors that aren't spending hours and hours of time like researching everything.
Mm-hmm.
Having faith in that and just like sticking with that, great strategy. But aside from that, if you are spending time, it's like, the same thing with the Bitcoin maximalist, like there's great opportunity out there. You just have to be willing to look at it,
Mm-hmm.
and I think one thing that everyone needs to learn is just how to better manage your diversification, and not like, getting wrecked to me isn't like losing money. It's losing money you can't afford to lose. Right. And so when you're looking at other opportunities, even like shitcoin opportunities, I think it's valid to like want to, it is more gambling for sure. It's not even comparison to Hex, which should be, your majority investment. But like, investing $100, if you have $1,000 to invest in, like with the upside of like a 10,000x or something crazy, I think it's like worth putting into your strategy, right? Like there's huge opportunities and it's like the wild, wild west right now. So, why not take some risk there? It's just all about managing that risk properly, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're 100% right, and I think that like starting from like those non-negotiables, that's like a good start,
Mm-hmm.
and it was probably like, and also like at least the hex maximalist type, their reason for not wanting other things is rooted in that high bar of like trustlessness,
Mm-hmm.
low risk, like rooted in that whole
Mm-hmm.
idea, as opposed to like some of the Bitcoin maximalists, like their maximalism is rooted in literally fan fiction they tell themselves,
Yeah,
like literally just like fake bullshit, just like they think that they're being all sophisticated and like plugged in and tuned in with the world, but it's
yeah,
really fan fiction bullshit. And so
yeah.
like the cause of the maximalism is just like different. The people that like commit to Bitcoin purely because it's like the longest lasting one, they're fully aware that like they're sacrificing the ability to experience like higher gains in a short period of time that come with like newer high risk things.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the ones that are like honest about that, where like they're satisfied with like the Bitcoin performance because of maybe like the peace of mind it gives them related to like its history of operation and
Mm-hmm.
never having like failed. Like to some people that's important to them, and and like they find comfort in like the supply schedule. Like for those people, they're like only buy Bitcoin purely because like to them that's satisfactory for like what they're looking to get out of crypto.
Mm-hmm.
Like that class of max, usually those people aren't the ones like yelling and screaming like, oh, this is a scam, this is a shit coin. Like
Yeah,
those people are more like not talking shit. Like they're
yeah,
just like committing to their strategy, and like that's what
totally.
they're doing, and they probably have high satisfaction. The maximalists that have very low life satisfaction, where they're just like shouting things down, just like talking shit, telling themselves stories and like just like fantasy world stuff,
Mm-hmm.
like that type of person, like you really can't help them. And
No,
like
yeah, for sure.
and I think that like the hex maximalism is more rooted in like reality and
Yeah,
results, as opposed to like the Bitcoin maximalism, which is just like
yeah,
almost like weird identity that some of them get.
Yeah.
Which is, there's some like identity that people gain from like being a hex person, like a
Well,
hex.
well, the difference also with Hex uh, is that a lot of it is rooted with a person, right? Like with Bitcoin, it's like a concept, and their talking points kind of come, but they also have like a lot of the Bitcoin talking points are like this echo chamber that's been going on for 12 years. So they all have their reasons that are very, solid there. But like a lot of hex maximalism, I think, comes from Richard Hart, right? Like people listen to what he says, um, and actually like fully, and this is on top of like the things that are put forth with how he builds products, but like truly his like belief system, people really do like integrate that into what they believe, which has been
Mm-hmm.
really interesting. And for the most part, very good things, right? Like
Yeah.
life-changing things about delayed gratification, self-improvement, like those things are really interesting. And the fact that it's ongoing, like
Mm-hmm.
Richard Hart has been, from the start of his project, and he continues to stream and engage with his community as he builds.
Oh yeah,
He's
that's a big, that's like, because
Yeah.
Satoshi, he was engaging when he was around, but now that he's either dead or
Hmm.
like just not doing anything, um, like a very very small number of people actually like had a conversation or like interaction with Satoshi, whereas like truly thousands and thousands of people have like
Hmm.
popped into the chat or asked a question on chat on YouTube and he answered it, or like he replied to your tweet, he replied to your Telegram. So like, that level of like, it like brings humanity to it, whereas like Satoshi's kind of this like mystical thing that,
Yeah.
I mean, so that's part of the allure to it, is like the whole like anonymous, like no
Hmm.
longer here thing. But like, you know that's kind of like Fantasyland fan
Hmm.
fiction, like the whole myth of Satoshi. Whereas like Richard's a real person who's like there on his computer talking to you, like
Hmm.
that. Again, it's kind of more like, even though there's like kind of like that, you know, like hero worship aspect
Yeah.
to it. Um, at least he's like a real person that, like, honestly, if you messaged him, he'd probably message you back.
Yeah.
And like that I think it aids in like the power that like Richard has, is kind of like a symbolic like
Hmm.
face, and also just kind of like a leader of this world.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that's a pretty powerful thing that goes
Yeah.
on.
And he he created like a class of people that became like really wealthy over 2 years. Um, and so, like Richard in himself is already like a very powerful personality. But now he has like this army of like OG Hexkins that further, you know, not, and they've actually not only become like wealthy, but like also have built brands and stuff around this identity of like hexakin, like being a hexkin. So it's like wealth and power to this core group of people that further support what he wants to build. And honestly, it's like, right, like books should be written about like what Richard Hart's done with how he's built a community. I mean, it's been very, very impressive. I know, like, obviously, yeah. It just like, I hope like with this evolution, with new products coming out, that as a community we learn how to like better engage with the outside world, and move away from like the like. But I mean, it was demanded upon us to be like cutthroat that first 2 years and like fight everybody that talks shit, and we're still kind of in that with like kind of the gatekeeping we experience. But now it's like, now we want people to come and join, pulse chain, and we've got to be able to like engage in a manner that isn't as conflicted, like,
Yeah, and it makes sense because in that first couple of years, like it could have gone to zero. Like
yeah.
if like we were on the wrong side of like the debate around like all those topics, like it could have absolutely failed. And so like,
Hmm.
and I even feel that myself. Like I used to be on Twitter just debating haters, like not so much like to convince them, but like mainly to just convince the reader, like the
Hmm.
third party reader who's like seeing that
Yeah.
conversation. Um, and now it's like, and now I like don't feel as compelled to just like be sitting on Twitter debating, whereas like
Yeah.
look at my tweets, like there's some great content in there, like just like out debating, just people hating on it. And
Yeah.
also there's a lot less opposition at this point. There's a lot of
Hmm.
opposition that kind of had to be countered early on, but now
Hmm.
it's like, what can you say? Like,
Yeah.
things have really kind of proven themselves. And then
Yeah.
but also like I don't think there will be as much like opposition to Pulse Chain because
Hmm.
like the Bitcoin people hated any new thing. They, and the whole like Richard's a scammer thing, that was literally came from a troll on Reddit who just like wrote this fake article that like
Yeah.
touched on like real blog posts, but like when you actually read them, it's like talking about this group of Panama people who are robbing, like lawyers and stuff, robbing people. And it turns out Richard was the one being robbed by these people. Like,
Yeah.
in the article, it says that like American businessman Richard Schuler got
Yeah.
robbed. Like, and so it's
Yeah.
just like, like it all stemmed from like a debate about the Bitcoin block size limit with like Roger Ver and then this other guy, I forgot his name. Then like someone just started spreading that on Reddit, and then like that as the first thing you see when you look it up, combined with like the Bitcoiners like apprehension to anything
Yeah.
new, especially something competing for that like savings use case. Um, there's a lot of apprehension there.
Yeah.
But now that like Pulse Chain's coming about, like the Ethereum people and like the other blockchain people, they're much more receptive to new things that they can like bridge
Hmm.
into and like do their whole thing. Like they love it.
Yeah.
And so like I already sense there's less apprehension there.
Hmm.
And then also like what can you hate about getting free coins
Yeah.
at like through that like PulseX AMM like price fixing like balancing thing, like that effectively like gives value to everyone's free coins, like.
Yeah.
And so like what could you hate about that? Like
Totally.
that's a good thing. Like the way that Pulse Chain is like a scaling, it's like an independent scaling layer to Ethereum that's not, I mean, even though it is connected by bridge, like the part that gives it like the scaling capabilities in addition to the bridge is like that market where like there's a copy
Hmm.
of the assets on both, and
Yeah.
you could like operate a copy on both chains. So um that's a really powerful
Yeah.
like thing. And so like just in general, there's less to hate about Pulse Chain than like there was for like the audience that Hex launched into.
Yeah, for
Like
sure.
Hex launched into like the Bitcoin audience or like the crypto audience coming off of like a 2-year bear market in altcoins.
Yeah.
So like that audience was not receptive of it.
Hmm.
Whereas like Pulse Chain's kind of, even though it's kind of a bear market now, Pulse Chain is launching into like off the back of the success of the whole
Hmm.
Hex thing. And then two, all these new people that came in the last like 2 years, like for the NFTs, like the DeFi stuff, they're chain agnostic. Like they don't care. To them, it's
Yeah.
just like different way to use it. And so, just the audience it's launching into, I think, just has a lot less reservations about
Totally.
the whole thing. And so that's like
Yeah.
a big boost.
I think the hex conflict thing is a double-edged sword, and I'm not someone to really jump in on drama or that type of thing. But I do, I do see that like attention is king, and the double-edged sword there is like, I know for a fact that a lot of these crypto influencers talk shit about Hex purely because they know that it will create a ton of engagement on social media. Like I think that's probably 80% of the shit that gets talked about Hex is just because they know that their comment section is going to be filled with like, 200 hexagons like just clapping back on them. So that's one side of it, but on the other side, like, I do think that with that attention also comes exposure for Hex, which is great. A lot of people, myself included, like when some of the past drama stuff has gone on, was just like, why are we like wasting our time with this? But the truth is that like, I don't think a lot of people would admit this, but a lot of people enjoy drama. They enjoy like, knowing what's going on. And there's like, even, the thing I really don't like is just like within the community, like that type of drama that gets propped up. I'm drama outside the community, talking to like other people is different in my mind. But again, I think the reality is that most people actually do enjoy it, and that
Yeah, I mean, it's
that's
like
okay. Yeah.
entertainment value. It's like same reason
Mhm.
why people like trash television.
Yeah.
And
Same.
like,
And same. Honestly, it's also, we were talking about how hex maximalism is tied to a person. Like Richard himself is not an agreeable person, and like people love to watch Richard Hart own other people. And
yeah, that's a good point.
there's like positives and negatives with that, but like I think that attraction, might be what got people into Hex, is like seeing Richard Hart own this other person that maybe was their leader, and so they come into Hex, or there's the type of person that likes to watch that, and so
Mm-hmm.
they're the first in line to like be watching shit go down on Twitter between people and like promoting that. So yeah, it's a double-edged sword, but I think I'm bullish on our community's ability to evolve. I think a lot of people have kind of turned the page a little bit, still willing to like fight the good fight outside of, and like defend Hex and Richard Hart, which I love. But like, yeah, it is going to be interesting. As Pulse Chain launches, a ton of projects are going to be launched. I'm confident with the bar that we were talking about, that Hexkins know more than most on how to like look at a project and know if it's something they want to be a part of. So that's good. And I also think like, especially right now, the quality of projects that are coming out are like, driven by Hexkins and, their quality. Like there's a handful of really quality products that are being launched. And so that, in turn makes me very bullish on Pulse Chain and like the future there as well.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have to hop off now. But
Dude, I'm just kidding. We've been on a minute.
I know, yeah, I gotta tend to
What's
some
your
things.
what's your closing knowledge?
Just mint use some Maxi.
Let's go. Start stacking your hex, guys. It's still a great time to buy. I think it just dropped under 15. So huge discount. Still very undervalued.
Yeah, get your discount for your discount.
It's at 14.5 right now. Do you think it'll go up or down?
Both.
What do you think it'll do? Do you think it'll dip back to 10?
Dude, it's going back to 10,000th of a penny.
Fuck. I'm just trying to. I'm still. I'm playing this game of like, I got a DCA in from some other coins before Maximus launch to get Hex, and like, I'm like, fuck.
Dude, I'm actually seriously thinking about early end staking some of my.
Damn.
It sucks because you're missing that big payday.
Yeah,
But
stop
like,
touching your mic. Stop touching your mic.
oh, sorry. So like, but maybe that big pay. I'll just have to. Maybe we should make a calculator that like helps people identify a window of time that like maybe your stake starts to end. That that like the amount of hex that you would get from minting Maxi with it, like would exceed that, like had you just like waited. So like because if you're losing, because what that bigger pays better payment was like probably like 40% to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So if you're losing, and so if that was 40% over that first year, so now it's been 2 years, so it's like 20%. So if you're losing 20% of like your total hex earnings to be able to mint MAXI now, then maybe you'll get more MAXI than maybe there's a 20% perma premium. And so like if you waited, you start with more hex, but you would have gotten the same, like less MAXI, because like during that time, the stake pool was earning, and maybe there's some premium there. So that's I have been seriously thinking about an end stake strategy where you end stake to kind of like what happened with Big Payday. It's like people were emergency end staking so that they could take what they got and then lock it in and then get more T-shares to get that bigger. Maybe with the launch of Maximus, there's like a similar strategy that like applies to like stakes that started within a certain range and stakes that end within a certain range. So
yeah, none of my stakes are halfway through, so I don't think I could benefit there. But that'd be interesting for sure. You should make that calculator. Hex,
But yeah, man, thanks for putting on this awesome
man.
stream, and your streams have been awesome.
Thanks for stopping by and dropping some knowledge.
Highlight Hex Farmers comment, not that one.
Hey,
Maximus, did you start the video with that video?
No, not this one. It's only for certain ones.
All right, dude.
All right, man. Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Let's see. Sorry, guys. I wasn't watching the. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be advising anyone to emergency end stake to mint MAXI. That'd be a bold move. But yeah, again, mine aren't even halfway yet, so I would get wrecked with emergency and stake penalties. Will MAXI baby, let's go. Just let your stake continue and then swap your hex for MAXI when it ends. Both stakes will have overlapping earnings. That's a much better strategy for sure. At some point, MAXI will gain more in the treasury than you can sell it for in any amount of time. Yeah. Yeah, that might be true. That actually might be very true. Thanks, HexConnex. Especially if you have existing stakes with a 10x Hedron bonus claim. True, very true. The mint phase should catch the highest Hedron multiplier. We're trying. Yeah, that's why we shortened the originally we were going to do a 30-day mint phase. We've shortened it down to 2 weeks. So that will start at launch. And hopefully it really comes down. We haven't announced the launch date just because we're waiting for our audit to get back. Fairly confident that we'll get the green light there. And then we will announce a launch date. Hopefully, like worst case scenario though, like they find something bad with the contract and we got to fix that before we launch. I don't think that'll happen, but if it does, we would obviously have to do that. We'd have to fix it. And then I don't know if we would have to get another audit or if we get like a free revision audit after that fix. What's up, Rob? Yeah, so I think I just said it. Yeah, so we're just waiting for our audit. It should get back tomorrow. So we'll know then. And if we get the green light there, we'll announce the launch date. That will make a 3x versus a 4x. That 1x is so huge. Yeah. Yeah. I'm totally pushing to get that bonus. It'd be amazing. Thanks, Rob. Yeah, guys, really great stream. I mean, again, I was just I started out the stream talking about kind of this new evolution of Hex and some liquidity options with Hedron and Maximus and the Gnosis safe transfer. Yeah, so if you want to go back there, I was just sharing some thoughts and like comparing them. As of right now, I do, I'm biased, but I do think Maximus provides the best qualities for liquidity, just as far as, being able to sell a portion of your position without having to sell your entire stake, I think is huge. Um, I think just valuing your position will be a lot more efficient than, let's say, like, an HSI NFT. Um, just trying to find a buyer for that might be a little more challenging. So, like, as far as efficiency goes, being able to just like liquidate faster, I think is a fair assessment. But yeah, man, really, really exciting stuff. I'm excited for launch, man. I'm like so anxious to get this uh audit back. Luckily we were able to get a pretty fast turnaround, which is great. But I know a lot of more like Hex influencers are really waiting for that audit to be able to talk about it more. Just totally get that, like, just hedging the risk of promoting something that's not good. I am such a Hexagon from day one. Appreciate Richard Hart and the family so much. Maximus is the best strategy of all. Appreciate that, man. That's awesome that you've been in Hex since day one. I've been advised not to like say when I got in, but I was pretty close around there. Yeah, shout out Richard Hart for building such a great product. Obviously, Maximus wouldn't be a thing without that. And shout out to all the people that have been a part of the community that have really grown the Hexagons, the ecosystem, and just the people in, because not only would Hex not exist, or Maximus not exist without Hex, but like you guys have really paved the way in like educating people about Hex, because if you can understand Hex and you get staking, then Maximus is really, really easy to understand. Would it be more profitable to have multiple Hex stakes at the maximum bonus rather than one big one? So if we exceed the Hex needed for the max bonus, are you going to do more than one stake? That's a good question. So I talk about, I'll drop this calculator in here for you guys to play around with. And, again, a lot of people, when they think of pooling for a max link stake, they think their first thought is the bigger pays better bonus, which is an extra 10% at 150 million Hex. But when you play around this calculator, you can see like that's really a cherry on top. Like type in it. So wait, let me just pull this up right while I'm thinking about it. So the default view, all you need to do to use this is make a copy, and then you can change the variables. Variables are in blue. But you can change the, let me see what it's actually titled. So it's called the Hex pledged at 1-1 or 1-to-1 MAXI minting rate. So that's essentially the amount pledged to the Maximus contract, essentially, the Hex in the stake, or the MAXI supply, same thing. And we actually built in a bonus calculator that actually calculates the accurate bonuses from longer pays bigger and bigger pays better bonus. And you'll see that, like, type in 150,000 Hex versus 150 million. And what you'll see is that, yes, it is beneficial to max out that bonus, but it's not huge. Like, you can look down. So under U, maybe I'll just share this actually. Oh, shoot. Actually, wait, let me go to a copy. Yep, there we go. Okay, so share this. Okay, so it's at 150 million right now. And these numbers are kind of crazy. Like this would be Hex at $100 and Hedron at $1. So down here, you can like play with your investment amount and you just input like the current Hex price. So this is like if you bought Hex at current price, this could be your return at these prices and variables. So so we'll just play with these numbers. So $46 million off of 5K investment if these prices happened and this was the average T-share payout and this was the share rate. Let's drop this down to 150,000. So yeah, let's see. So, you know, it was 47 before, 47 million. Here it's 45. Let's do more realistic numbers. Let's do like $1. And let's do, I think these are more realistic numbers. Could happen. Again, this is just for entertainment purposes. No promise of return here. So back to 150 million. So 222,000, 4,459% gain. Back to 150,000, 216. So, yeah, again, it is beneficial, but the bigger pays bonus really isn't the biggest value proposition. It's just kind of a cherry on top, in my opinion. So to answer your question, no, we're not going to be capping out the amount we can do. As far as future launches, no set plans yet. We have been starting to think about what that could look like. Really exciting to see people thinking about the future, which is really exciting. I think that's a good signal that this is something that people want continued, and our mind is there as well. And the way we're building this, we designed this first contract to be as simple as possible, and really made the decisions of how we were going to build this based off of that kind of ethos of like, does this add more, like, is the risk of this functionality worth integrating, you know? And we've landed at a very simple contract. It's only about 6 functions. So really hedging that smart contract risk. It's also lowered the cost of our audit, which is really great. It's only about like 170 lines of code, I think. So this is kind of our baseline. Like this is, but yet it's still a very, very powerful contract. Like I think people are starting to realize that like this is huge. In my mind, the liquidity aspect of having a liquid token that kind of represents your T shares is huge. So from here, if we were to launch future contracts, well, one thing I always like to make clear is that it would not be MAXI tokens. The 100% of the supply will be generated during the one-time mint phase, and there will only be one stake. If we were to launch a future contract, it would be under a different ticker. And kind of our next thought of launching another one would be the thing we would want to like test out or kind of prove is like a backwards compatibility with this Genesis Maximus stake. So the ability to maybe mint the next token with your MAXI, or incentivizing a liquidity pool between the two. So kind of working on building that backwards compatibility would probably be the next iteration or thing we focus on. From there, I mean, the sky's kind of the limit if we can prove that out, because we've talked about everything from creating a platform where anyone can create their own pools, which would be really awesome. Something I really have thought about a lot. We've thought about kind of a master DAO like treasury that maybe holds each of these tokens as like like, what do you call it? Like reserve currency. That would be really cool, and maybe open up the ability for people to stake through that DAO and earn on top of it. More recently, we've been talking about, and this is like separate from like the contract launches, but like Brian was just talking about like maybe a lending protocol. I'm not a huge fan of lending and leverage, but it is a big piece of finance that a lot of people do like. And, we were talking about this earlier today, but Maximus would make great collateral. And now I actually understand that a lot more. I hope you guys learned something there, because I did. What else are we thinking about? Yeah, so sky's really the limit, but we're really focused on this launch. We want to knock it out of the park, and go from there. So as of right now, MAXI is the only contract in the works. So, oh, what's up, Nardo? Welcome, man. Mr. E said $100 hex is unrealistic, way too low. I know, man. I have no idea. 15 years is a long time from now. Oh, who knows? Who knows? I asked the other day, and like $100 was definitely like, I asked that on Twitter, and $100 was like the lowest that anyone said it could be. So, I mean, that's what's fun about the calculator, right? Like you can input what you think it could be, but you'll definitely see that like the price appreciation of both these assets is huge for the MAXI backing value. Really cool to kind of compare the hex price at in stake versus the MAXI redemption value. Is always kind of like exponential of that. I put out a bet like, I don't know, maybe a month ago. I was like, I was a little tipsy at this time, but I was like, I'm pulling what's his name, Rakeem Rochelle or whatever, and I put up $1 million that hex would be worth more than, or MAXI would be worth more. One MAXI would be worth more than one hex in 5 years. No one took the bet. I don't know. I might still leave that up, because hard for it not to be. Almost impossible. But I guess the caveat with that bet is like, maybe the market value. If the market value is lower than hex, that's a great time to buy, which I don't ever think it will be lower. But the redemption value will definitely be higher for sure. So. If you guys have any questions about Maximus, feel free to drop them in the comments. More than happy to answer. I can probably stay on another 15 minutes. But this has been a really, really great stream. I just looked at the time. It's been 2 hours and 47 minutes. So a lot of good discussions here. Tonto dip catcher is super smart. I always really, really enjoy our conversations. We've been best friends since 5th grade, and best friends through high school, and then we went to different colleges. And then after college, he was working like, he was in an engineering program, and his senior capstone project, he decided that he wanted to build a pair of glasses, essentially with a 3D camera embedded within them. And the idea was that this camera could capture the world as you see it. So it was a stereo 3D camera. So it had 2 cameras right above your eyes. And he built it, and presented. He was also in like an entrepreneurship program too. And so he was still in school when I was out of school and I was working. And so like towards the end of that year, he hit me up, and him and his team, like the entrepreneurship team, were going to this conference in Miami to like present their product. And he invited me to go. and like I sketchily like called out of work and flew to Miami, and his team like was just screwing off the whole time, but we like linked up and we were just like selling this product together on the conference floor. And you know, it was shortly after that I quit my job and moved to Arizona where he was going to school, and we launched a startup together. It was called VidiVR, and we tried to take that the pair of glasses to market, but hit a point where we had to raise like 20 million or something to get it produced. So we pivoted to an app for sharing this type of content, and we launched like the first 3D VR content platform to iPhone. So that was about 3 years of work, and it was awesome. A little backstory on us. Okay, so Rob says, does the chart show where Maximus development team takes profit? Thank you. So we aren't. Yeah, there's no pre-mine, no team budget here. Very philanthropic. So the only benefit that we get from Maximus is kind of equal to everyone else. We can mint one MAXI to one hex. So yeah, it's been it's been interesting, you know, this approach, just because like, you know, I'm like well off on paper with hex, you know, like, but I'm still, you know, I'm 29, and I'm a freelance designer, and you know, spending a lot of time on this, and just because I'm passionate about it, man. I wish, you know, at some point I hope we can like be able to uh you know, do this more full time than I already am, even though I'm spending full time hours on it. But yeah, so yeah, we'll be yeah. So are you just going to profit along with us? Yeah, that's it, man. Yeah, that liquidity, you know, talking about like, yeah, it's big. I'm excited about it. Hex Farmer said these guys are making a product for the community. There's no premium. They're trading Hex for Maxi. Yeah, true, man. Thank you guys. Thank you. Hexkin Community Service Project. Yep. That's really it. And that's why it's really hard for people to like come at us, you know, because it's like we're not making any money here, you know. Yeah. It's a bold move, but I mean, I've loved it. It's created like this drive of like just wanting, you know, I'm because my motives aren't like to try to make money off of other people. It's just purely out of like, I think this is a great idea and I love working on it, and I think it's going to help a lot of people. And so that's been like this very unique inspiration and drive to continue to work on it. And it's been really awesome. I mean, like the people that have joined now are all early, and I like to think of everyone as founders of this. We've got some of the best like leaders a community could ask for, just helping out, and it's been really fun. So I, you know, aside from building something awesome that I'm looking forward to like participate with, like just the community aspect of Maximus has been really, really awesome. So thank you guys. Cheers to that. Let me know if you guys have any other questions. I think I dropped this. Yeah. So if you want to play around with the Google Doc, you're more than welcome to. I shared it in the comments. Let's see what else. So audit's supposed to come back tomorrow. We're still running a test phase on PulseChain V2B. So the link to that is maximus.cash. So you can go, you just need some test hex to be able to mint. I believe the mint phase is still going on. I think today is the last day. So if you guys want to do that, go mint some Maxi, and then the stake will start tomorrow, and then you'll be able to redeem some tests, hex and Hedron from that stake. So that'll be cool. good chance to like try it out before mainnet launch. People have been asking like, how do I prepare for Maxi launch? Just buy Hex. That's all you need. Yeah, I think it's a really good price right now if you're looking to swap. But just stack your Hex for the max you want to mint. It's pretty simple. Yeah, guys. So I think I put the official links in the bio, or the, what is that called? Not bio. Down there. So if you want to go follow us on Twitter, you can also join our Telegram if you got any more questions. Usually in there all day. So this has been a lot of fun, guys. I'm starting to nod off. My mind's going other places. So yeah, I will see you guys later. Hope you have a great rest of your Tuesday.